Welcome in to a Monday edition of the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network. And what a Monday it is. First of all, man, oh man, you step outside, you are immediately in a good mood. You step outside, the sun is shining. It's about 60 degrees outside. I mean, no complaints there. And rumor has it, weather is going to be really pretty good, if not very good, the rest of the week. I don't want to jinx it, so do that quick little knock thing. I knocked on the desk here, and Bohm immediately looked over his right shoulder to the door like, come in.
Oh no, the timing could not be worse.
Bohm, how you doing over there, buddy?
I'm doing great, Chico. You're right. As soon as I stepped outside, it just felt really good. Do I even need this jacket?
Yeah.
It's a great day to welcome in and hopefully beat the crap out of the Yankees.
Yes, Yankees are in town. Not a great weekend for the Guardians. You'll have that. I mean, let's face it, they took 3 out of 4 from a good Seattle team in Seattle. And this past weekend, Seattle returned the favor, taking 2 out of 3. Guardians were able to salvage the finale of that game yesterday in extras. That fight is still there. Couple of takeaways from the weekend series, which we're going to get to here in just a few moments. But yes, the Yankees are in town tonight. That is a 6:10 first pitch. So if you're thinking about heading down and catching the Guards, make sure you get there. Plenty of time. Maybe you're coming right after work, but 6:10 will be the first pitch. And Aaron Judge and the whole Uncle Arnie, our good buddy Booney, his brother, we affectionately know as Uncle Arnie, will be on the bench for the Yanks as well. So hopefully a good crowd. Again, weather is not a factor here, so hopefully a good crowd tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday. But we'll talk more about that as we move along. What else do we got? Also, a wild finish at Augusta. For a minute there, I thought I was seeing things when I saw Phil Mickelson rocket up the leaderboard. I'm like, this is too good to be true. This can't be. And I'm not as high on Phil as I used to be. I do think that Phil made a pretty good point, and a lot of the live golfers have made a pretty good point. Like many things that Phil Mickelson does, he kind of, went another step or 2 or 50 to kind of prove the point, and, it was kind of tired after a while. But, all of those guys that cash checks from the weekend, they're the largest checks ever from the Masters. Do you think that's just coincidence? As far as, the live tour coming in, and now all of a sudden, the tour decides we're gonna up the purses here, and that was stuff that basically the PGA Tour, Jay Monahan, knew was coming, and I think he kind of thought they were bluffing. Now, it still stinks the way the whole thing goes, because to me it wasn't as exciting. Okay, I understand the whole, you have a villain now, and that's not the villain you want. You want the villain to be, just organic. You want it to be, it never did, but Tiger and Phil, and, you had Phil, some people loved, you had Tiger, some people loved. Those are the organic rivalries that developed. I don't want a rivalry based on, well, you left the PGA in search of more money, and, but again, Phil Mickelson was given $200 million. Somebody please tell me. Now, you can say what you want, and our good buddy Brendan Gulick. And Brendan Gulick swore that he would never, ever, no matter what, would he take any money to go over to the Live Tour. I'm like, Gulick, if they offered you $200 million, I mean, if you're that righteous, no, it's dirty money. I'm like, okay, it's dirty money, but it's a lot of dirty money. $200 million. Now, again, I don't like the fact that, you have this other tour and the fact that they play 54 holes, and it's so weird. It's taken away the interest, at least for me. Maybe some like it more. I don't. I like to think of myself, at least years ago, as a diehard golf fan, in that a major tournament was on and I really didn't miss much. I really didn't catch all that much of the Masters. Now, a lot of it had to do with rain delays and all of that good stuff, but it just doesn't have the same feel. But John Rahm, of course, he's very exciting, very excitable. Not really. Tops Brooks Koepka. Phil was right there and posted a 65. 52 years young, Phil Mickelson posts a 65 at Augusta. The dude can still play some golf. He might be a little, but he can play some golf.
I really didn't expect that out of old lefty.
I mean, I was telling you guys, you in particular, because you're always here in studio with me, which I appreciate. And Thursday and Friday, I remember saying to you, like, oh, look at Phil. He's at 2, and he's at 4 under. And all right, Phil. And then I just kind of, the rain delays hit. I was watching baseball. I was doing some other things, and I just, I kind of lost interest. And I feel like maybe I should have my golf card taken away, fan card taken away. Golf card. Yeah, my PGA Tour card. I feel like I should have it taken away, but I would bet a lot of you, many of you, probably feel the same way I do. I'm curious. 216-626-7901. Again, 216-626-7901. It is the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network. You can also find us on the Twitter machine. Go on to at Chico Show CLE. You can check that out. Also go on YouTube. And if you have not subscribed, well, damn it, what are you waiting for? Type in there that here box, the Chico Bormann Show, hit subscribe, and you'll be ready to go. We come to you live each and every day, Monday through Friday, from 1 until 3. Also, coming up in about an hour, a little less than an hour now, 2 o'clock for every show. We always have a guest in the second hour, and we've got some NFL news. And I figured, well, who better to unpack that than our good buddy Nick Shook, because we've been talking to him about this for a few weeks now. OBJ is a member of the Baltimore Ravens, but he's a member of the Baltimore Ravens for a guaranteed $15 million, could be $18 million. Now, as I said, we'll save a lot of this for Nick at 2 o'clock. $15 million, I don't care. $15 million is a lot of money for a guy that hasn't played a whole lot of football. And he's, I'm not saying that he still can't hurt a defense. I'm not saying that he's somebody you don't have to worry about on defense. That's ridiculous. But he is nowhere near what he used to be. And then the Ravens go ahead and do it. And I don't understand it really from both sides, Bohm. Like, from the Ravens side of things, again, you've tried so many different wide receivers. I mean, this is just how their offense. Now, maybe they're going to change. They got rid of their offensive coordinator. Maybe they're going to completely redo the offense. I would doubt it, though. But this is what your offense has really been is, you're not necessarily stretching the field. Your top receiver, who is very dangerous, but still is a tight end in Mark Andrews. The running game is paramount, including your quarterback, but that's probably going to be, a lighter load for him coming if, in fact, he's on the field. So I guess from the Ravens standpoint, I'm saying $15 million for OBJ, could be 18. That's a lot of money for an organization that usually is pretty smart and buttoned up about what they do. Then from OBJ's standpoint, okay, I hear a lot that, he and Lamar are in communication. I'm sure they are. But now people assume because OBJ signed on with Baltimore that, that must mean that Lamar Jackson is absolutely going to play. And I know he got franchised, okay? I know that, but he wants traded. Things are not good. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen. Maybe OBJ does. But even still, even if Lamar Jackson is there, if you're telling me that's a 1-year prove-it deal, and it's a 1-year prove-it deal, I think you're gambling big time if you're OBJ. You're gambling some if you're Baltimore, but you're gambling some too if you're OBJ, which leads me to believe, and again, we'll have Nick Shook from NFL.com shed some light here at about 2 o'clock, leads me to believe that nobody else was really in the market for him, or at least not for that price of $15 million a year. We heard stuff about the Jets. If I'm OBJ, I think the Jets makes total sense. I mean, you've got certainly a team on the rise. Aaron Rodgers is coming into the fold, we think. I mean, we haven't heard much, which leads me to believe that it's pretty much going to be a done deal. This might be a draft day deal. Although if I'm Green Bay, I'd probably want it done before the draft because I'd want to know which picks I'm getting and can I trade up, with that collection to move up and get somebody. But it doesn't make a lot of sense on all sorts of fronts. And it has nothing to do with me not liking OBJ or I don't care the way he left here or any of that. It's just, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for OBJ, and it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for Baltimore, yet here we are, the deal gets done.
Chico, do you think it's possible this move was made to appease Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, but the bottom line is, what's the only thing that's going to appease Lamar Jackson?
Guaranteed money.
Yeah. And right now, they're just a little bit apart. Like, they're offering, 130? Lamar wants, 250 guaranteed. I mean, that's a pretty big discrepancy. Now, I didn't even know Lamar and OBJ were great friends. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know. But again, in the context of their offense, is he going to make that big of a difference? They're still a run-oriented team. And then, the other part of this with OBJ is, what if things do go sour and turn sour, and now all of a sudden it's Tyler Huntley? You're on your prove-it deal, and Tyler Huntley's had some moments, but you're on your prove-it deal, and that's who you're banking on to get football? I don't know. It's just very, very weird all the way around. I said it a week ago when the rumor popped up that, maybe he's playing them for leverage and really wants to go with the Jets, but I have a feeling he wasn't really that much in demand. So we'll see what happens.
I'm inclined to agree with you in that regard, Chico. And I don't think that he's a bad locker room presence by any means, but it seems like wherever he goes, drama seems to follow, and that can make you very prone to implosion, as we saw here in Cleveland.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up. And again, 216-626-7901 if you want to check into the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network. What is the one thing that will cause drama for OBJ? How many balls is coming his way? And that's for he's not alone in that category. But so now you're telling me in an offense that everything we've seen doesn't exactly equate to the greatest show on turf with Warner and the boys back in the late 90s. So where are all these passes? There aren't many passes to go around. The ones that do go around, the majority of them are going to be to Mark Andrews. You would imagine he's still going to be your number one. Odell can have an impact, but are there going to be games where he's really not in the game plan? And those games that he's not in the game plan, does he make it known that he's not happy?
Probably.
Yes. I would say about 90. I'll go 92% on that one. That I think he would probably make a few waves. But
you remember the "come get me" story in Arizona?
The "come get me" story.
There was a rumor that he told a player to come get me, to trade for me.
Oh yeah. I thought maybe he said that in an airline. How about him in the airport, Where
that was something.
Yeah, he was completely out of it. I mean, like,
Yes.
Fan was just trying to, like, hey, we're trying to, fly. We're trying to get going. We can't because
Just buckle your seatbelt, man.
yeah, that's it. And then it was like he stood up and wanted to fight. He didn't even really know where he was. And then fans were just like, look, we all got places to be. I don't care if you're OBJ. I don't care who the hell you are. We got places to be. Can you just buckle your damn seatbelt so we can take off? No. Because it's never that easy with OBJ. But we'll we'll talk more about that in the 2 o'clock hour with Nick Shook. Cavaliers are all set. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference playoffs for their series against the Knicks Saturday night at 6 p.m. I think that's kind of the sweet spot. Not necessarily for prime time, but like you have plenty of time all day if you want to tailgate and have a few adult beverages. 6 o'clock comes around, you go to the game. Cavs pull out a W. You're out of there by little after 8, and you've still got the entire night ahead of you. I think Cleveland could be rocking. The Guardians are out of town that weekend. I think they play the Nationals. So I'm excited for this series, Bohm. I really am. And, I'd be geeked anyway for the Cavaliers in the playoffs just because, well, the Cavaliers are in the playoffs and they're doing this without LeBron and they're doing just I really love the makeup of this team. Sure, it has a few zits. Every team does. But I like the makeup. Kobe Altman, I've said it so many times. My apologies to him. Every one of us that thought, man, what does Kobe Altman do? He knew exactly what he was doing. And 51 wins on the season. There are certain things that are concerns. Guess what? Every team has concerns. But by and large, I feel good about them in this first series. But, yeah, I'm not going to lie. The idea, I have not let this go. Boom, like as soon as it was said, I was like staring at that television screen when Eric Casillas was on last week, and the Cavs are nothing but a speed bump. What? I mean, and again, that's coming from the fans. I would hope that if the players believe that they're not dumb enough to say it. I don't think they are. Thibodeau is kind of a buttoned-up, no-nonsense guy, so I don't think he'd go for that. But just the idea that, like, fans are and, like, some of the talk show hosts. A speed bump. I mean, they didn't just back into the playoffs. This is a team with legitimate talent. You basically have two superstars. One superstar already, I think, in Donovan Mitchell. Evan Mobley, I think, is on that path. Like he's in 2 years, maybe as early as next year. We're talking about Evan Mobley as, one of the true elite players in the game of basketball. Darius Garland and Jared Allen, I mean, easy. Just pencil them in every year. Hell, for that matter, Sharpie them in every year as all-stars. So you've got some nice pieces, great pieces. And the Knicks fans seem to think it's just going to be a walk in the park. I hope that place Saturday night, and I know it will be, is absolutely just rocking. I mean, when the Knicks get the ball, when Julius Randle touches the ball, when Jalen Brunson touches the ball, just noise, and more noise. We'll be breaking this one down throughout the course of the week and, of course, getting ready. But it is so much fun. And so exciting to think about the Cavaliers back in the playoffs, not a play-in game, a real series. You have home court advantage, and it's against the New York Knicks. And, yeah, their fans think that they're just going to kind of skip along in the park and advance to the second round.
Yeah, Chico, first time back in the playoffs, if you don't count the play-in, since the LeBron era.
Yeah.
So I think the fans, it's going to be an absolutely chaotic atmosphere. I can't wait. I hope they get off to a good start.
Yeah.
Because I love, a cavalanche. I want to see a cavalanche early.
You like that term, Boom. You like the I've noticed you dropped a few cavalanches since the beginning of the Chico Bormann show.
I love that term. I think it's very symbolic of sort of how this team has played over the course of the season, right? Because there have been so many times where they just get sloppy, and then they get down big, leads or deficits of 15 plus points, and then they go on these insanely hot scoring runs. It's like a avalanche of points. It snowballs on you.
It is a avalanche of points, Boom. But here's the thing: I don't want to see that become a. It is fun seeing a team come back and erase a large deficit, but if that's happening, then to me, the Cavaliers are not really. They're not staying. They're not playing their game. I've made a big point of this that I think, that's fine. Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, you've got those great guards, but don't forget about those big men. Don't forget about, you don't have to. You don't feel like you have to race up and down the floor because another team wants to do the same. Cavs can play a variety of styles. They play great defense and, allow that defense to do what they do in the half court as opposed to letting teams get out in transition. But we'll have plenty of time to break all that down and talk about it. And, again, want to hear from you. 216-626-7901, 216-626-7901. All right, so Guardians are, what is their record now? 6-4. Boom. As they get ready for the New York Yankees tonight, beginning with a 3-game set. And, obviously Yankees are trailing behind the Tampa Bay Rays, who have not lost yet. That's still kind of, I realize their schedule is stunk. But, the Rays are 9-0. And they're not even allowing teams. It's not even a ball game for them. But, the Rays are atop that division. Yankees are 6-3. Guardians 6-4. It's very, very early, but there are a couple of things, two in particular, that I think we discussed before the season that could happen that at least early on has materialized. The first one is Oscar Gonzalez looks really, really bad at the plate. And we hope that changes because Oscar Gonzalez is one of those guys that, I think everybody loves him from, his teammates in the clubhouse to Terry Francona to the fans, obviously, the SpongeBob SquarePants and all that good stuff. But he looks lost at the plate. He's chasing a lot of pitches, and I heard an interesting interview with Terry Francona over the weekend talking about Oscar, and he basically said, we are a team that we don't chase, we good at bats are a big thing, but it's okay to have one or two guys in your lineup that don't necessarily adhere to that philosophy. He said you can get away with that. So it was interesting to hear Tito talk about this. Was, I think, pregame either yesterday or the day before. It was interesting for Tito to talk about it, saying we're trying to get him to stop chasing. We want him to be more comfortable, but at the same time, he is a run producer. He is a guy that can drive the ball, so you don't want to just completely take that element out of his hands. Well, he might just need to sit down a little bit anyway. And I hope he gets... maybe it's just clearing his head. Maybe he's trying to do too much. I don't know. But there's two things working against him. One, like I said, he's chasing way too many balls. He's striking out way too many times. The other thing is the guy that made this roster out of spring training, who has really, really impressed again to start this season, is Will Brennan. Now, the Yankees, I believe... they've got Herman tonight. I think there's 3 righties in this series. Let me double check that. Not that Tito wouldn't play Will Brennan against a. Garrett Cole then tomorrow, and Clark Schmidt on Wednesday. So those are all right-handed pitchers. I wouldn't be surprised if Will Brennan starts all 3 of those games, at least 2 of the 3, and Oscar Gonzalez kind of just because the other thing is Will Brennan's getting some really good wood on the ball. He's making good swings. And they like him a lot. I think you're probably. I'd be surprised when starting lineups come out. It might come out before the end of the show. We're done at 3. First pitch at 6:10. I wouldn't be surprised if Will Brennan is in the starting lineup tonight. I wouldn't be surprised, again, tentatively set right now with Cole and Schmidt to follow Herman. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see Will Brennan get the start in all three of these games. It's not the end of the world for Oscar Gonzalez, but it was something that I think we all feared. Even the Guardians talked about it last year that now the book's out on him. So he's not going to see a lot of dead red. If he's sitting dead red fastball, I said they're going to make him work. They're going to chase. They're going to, have pitches out of the zone, and those eyeballs get bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's chasing those baseballs. So Oscar maybe gets a rest. The other guy that needs to get going is Josh Bell. And this one you could see because, here comes Josh Bell, and he's the perfect protection for Jose Ramirez in the lineup, batting cleanup. And he just hasn't really gotten going. Now, the fielder's choice to end it, and Josh Bell was it. That's fine. Maybe that gets him going. I don't know. Right now, he's hitting a lot of ground balls, and he just doesn't look comfortable. And that, again, classic case of, I would think, a guy that is just trying to do too much. People are worried, is this going to be Josh Bell from a couple of years ago with the Pittsburgh Pirates, or is this going to be Josh Bell with the Nationals when he struggled? I think Josh Bell, when he settles in, and he will settle in, is going to be, I don't think he puts up incredible numbers, but he can put up 25 to 30 home runs. And most importantly, can be great protection for Jose in that lineup in the fourth hole. But right now, he's not that guy. Like, would you move, for instance, a guy like Andres Jimenez is absolutely crushing the baseball right now. Like, he's going, yeah, thanks for the All-Star nod, thanks for the extension. Let's just pick up right where we left off. He's been great. Tito tends to not overreact, which is one reason I think he's one of many why he's a great manager. But I also like the fact that he hasn't – remember, Will Brennan started game one of the season against Seattle, and everybody just assumed, that Oscar Gonzalez. So you already saw a platoon happening. I don't think he's going to mess around for too long. And that doesn't mean that Oscar Gonzalez is in the doghouse and never gets back out again. But I do think that Will Brennan, who continues to impress, is going to see some more ABs. And I would not be surprised, Bohm, if Will Brennan is in the starting lineup tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday afternoon.
Well, it makes a lot of sense with the pitching matchup. But to your point also, I do think that is something about Tito. He's extremely lenient, and I think we see him try out a lot of things before, finally, whether it be giving up on a guy or deciding that he could be a long-term player option for the club. And I would expect at some point we'll see a lineup shakeup, because baseball is a game of flowing. It's a flowing game. No player is hot for 162 games. You just don't see that. There's a fluctuation to it, and some players start hot, other players start slow. I've heard you ask Brett Boone about it in the past, and he talks about how he always feels like he starts the season 0 for 19 before he gets his first hit.
Yeah.
So I think that it is important for a guy, or for us, to be lenient with a guy like Oscar as well. You're right. Maybe the MLB has started to figure him out a little bit more. He needs to have that opportunity to fight back, to respond back.
Well, okay. I agree with that. And 216-626-7901. You can also, if you're on YouTube and you want to fire off some comments there, you're more than welcome to do that. The only thing I would say, Bohm, is you're right. He deserves that right. But if you've watched some of their games, and I know you have, he doesn't. It's not like he's just missing balls. He hit that one hard. It was just right at somebody, or he was just a little gets underneath that a little more, and that ball's out of here. I mean, he looks bad. He looks really, really uncomfortable, and it's not like it's abnormal. He's a young guy. He broke out last year. He played a big part in them winning 92 games and winning a series, and he became a fan favorite. But this is why the major leagues is the major leagues, because teams will figure you out. Teams have scouting reports that are, larger than this room, and they're going to find what you don't do well, and they're going to exploit that, and they're going to keep going to that and going to that and going to that until you prove that, you've mastered it. And I think right now, like I said, it's not a matter of, well, he deserves the opportunity to figure it out. While he's trying to figure it out, he looks like you can do more harm than good from a confidence standpoint for him doing that. And why not in a situation where you have Will Brennan, who can do everything well? I mean, he's a good defender also. Will Brennan playing, at least maybe these 3 games against the Yanks. I would be shocked. I'll say it right now. I would be shocked if Will Brennan is not starting in right field when the Guardians take on the Yanks tonight at Progressive Field. Germán on the bump against Shane Bieber.
Yeah, and I do agree with you about some of it with Gonzalez has looked pretty rough. He's had some strikes that are just cringeworthy, where he's swinging and missing at pitches over his head. There is concern in that, and sometimes you're right. It does take just stepping away for a couple of days to sort of reset your mental game. But I think in Oscar's case, and I have faith in Tito to know what's best for him, to continue with to handle this player no differently than he handles any other one. But 10 games into the season just seems too early to outright say that this is what we should expect for the rest of the year.
Oh, no. Gosh. No, I'm definitely not saying that. I mean, it is a small sample size. I just don't think that most of the time when Tito's patient, it's with veterans, as he should be. Oscar Gonzalez obviously is not a veteran. So, and this is something that I don't think we were too shocked about when it happened. So I think it was one of those things where, okay, he struggled, but now you're watching him and it's almost cringeworthy when you see him, and you've got a guy. This is the great thing. You have a guy behind him, and not even behind him, because again, I think it started the season as a legit platoon. But Will Brennan is just hitting and hitting and hitting, and not just hitting. Like, as bad as Oscar looks at the plate, Will Brennan looks great at the plate, looks very comfortable, looks very confident at the plate. So it wouldn't shock me to see that. All right, 216-626-7901, 216-626-7901. So 10 games in, Guardians are 6-4. I like what I've seen so far. I know there's been some talk, the bullpen, Emmanuel Clase has already coughed one up. It's okay. That's where I do say it is very early. Certain guys you worry about. I do worry about Karinchak a little bit, only because he is a guy that, as I said, he does run hot and all that. Zach Plesac, it was good to see that he had a good outing. But all indications are Tristan McKenzie is doing well in rehab, but he's got a while before he comes back. But I think all in all, you head into the Yankee series, you're 6-4. You've got your stud ace on the mound tonight against Domingo Germán, and I think Germán's a guy that the Guardians can get to, that they can score some runs against, and I think they will. Weather conducive to that as well, so looking forward to it. All right, what else we got? So I said coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to talk a little NFL, mainly this OBJ Ravens deal with Nick Shook. Meanwhile, the Browns, I think we're just kind of hanging out, waiting for, day 3 of the draft. I know some people, I saw somebody over the weekend and said, well, you know that Andrew Berry's going to be looking to trade up. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, first of all, you've got what? 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6, and a 7. I think he realizes, like, hey, we've got to do our due diligence. If something happens there, and wow, in the 3rd round or 4th round, there's a guy that they absolutely love. Yeah, he's not going to be. But I don't agree with the idea or the mentality when someone says, oh, well, he is that type of GM that he's going to move. You don't just move up to move up. And right now, I think hopefully they're doing their due diligence on guys on that D line, guys in that wide receiver room. we're going to have a big wait, which means, I think as fans, but it could be worse. Always remember that, fans. It could be worse when the Browns had number 1 overall, or when they had, 2 number 1s, and it was Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel. Oh, yes. Those were the days.
Doesn't get any better than that.
Well, you know why it doesn't get – I'm going to go down this path here. You've heard me rant on this before, but the thing that really amazed me about that draft, which was 2014, if I'm not mistaken, right? Johnny and
Justin Gilbert.
Justin Gilbert. So Johnny, I didn't like to begin with. I didn't like all the hoopla and the lead up and the money sign. And admittedly, maybe he would translate, maybe he'd be, but then it didn't take long to realize like this guy's priorities are really screwed up. I was embarrassed. I've said this many times that like people in the media, professionals who have been here a while, were crying when they drafted Johnny Manziel. Not crying like, oh, God, why did you do? Like, oh, my God, Johnny's. What? He's 21, 22, whatever he was years old. He hadn't proven anything. All he proven is that he was great in the SEC, and he was, and that he loved to party, and he had a magnetic personality, and people liked being around him for the most part, certainly on the party scene. That was it. But I just remember seeing, like, and they would show shots outside, people crying, and I'm like, what? He hasn't done anything. But the worst of the worst, I mean, Johnny really was the worst because of the position and all the hype. But Justin Gilbert, this is one of my favorite / non-favorite ugly stories of Browns drafts. They've had plenty over the years, and hopefully we're past these days for a long time, where it was just year after year after Corey Coleman. And I mean, it was terrible. Brandon Whedon. It was awful. But Justin Gilbert, they traded up to get him, I think. They went from like 9 to 8, I think, to grab Justin Gilbert. Now, admittedly, it's not my job as a talk show host to, uncover all the details of Justin Gilbert and find. All I know is I watched him a couple of times. He played for Oklahoma State. He was long, like all that thing. The catchphrases that you kind of fall for, like 6'1", 190. He can return kicks. Remember, he did that very well at Oklahoma State. And, hey, this is a guy that he doesn't mind. He doesn't mind hitting people, but he's long. He's tough. All right, Justin Gilbert. So I think that was Pettin too. Like, play like a Brown. All right, yeah, we're ready. And then the very next season, you know where I'm going with this, Boom. The very next season, Mike Pettin takes to the podium, as all coaches do at the, combine, whatever. And, the questions start coming. And they start coming about Johnny, but then they start coming about Justin Gilbert. And I'll never forget Mike Pettin saying, yeah, Justin has some demons that he's working through right now. I'm not making that up. You can go back and look that. I did. I have plenty of times. Justin Gilbert has some demons that he's working through. What was that? Yeah, he's got some issues that we No, you said demon. Yeah, well, demons, yeah. How long did you guys know about these? Did you know about this before you drafted him? No, we really did. Come to find out, that was Ray Farmer. Remember when everybody was making the jokes about Ray Farmer just had a magazine like you and I would have for our fantasy football league? That's like basically what Ray Farmer had. Guys from Oklahoma State, assistant coaches from Oklahoma State were saying, if they would have asked us, we would have told them, because they don't BS people. Like, make no mistake, schools want to get their guys drafted. I mean, doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, right? It's great exposure, and then hopefully they have success at the NFL level, and then when they're trying to recruit, it's, hey, look how many guys we get to the NFL, and blah, 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 blah. But these assistant coaches were like, nobody came to his nobody from the Browns went to his pro day. Like, nobody really worked him out. What? You trade up to 8th overall for a guy that you never worked out. You only, I guess, saw on film. And then, again, if you're on the ground there, you got boots on the ground, as they say, Bohm. Well, all you're doing is standing next to guys, right? Pretty conducive atmosphere to. So tell me about Justin Gilbert. We really like this kid. He's athletic, he's long, he's physical. Yeah, he's all that, but man, these assistants don't lie, because they realize that their jobs, it's all one big fraternity, right? Some guy in the NFL maybe knows you or knows of you, and then he finds out that you just sold him a bill of goods because you told him, oh no, this guy's records. They don't do that. By and large, they don't do that. They're not going to just lie to someone's face and say, this guy is a choir boy as the day is long, man. I mean, he'll probably be getting done with this workout, and he's probably going to go volunteer at the soup kitchen, get some studying in, even though he's got his degree already, and then he'll just go home and take a nap, and he'll be in for the night. All right. No. So I was stunned. Like, did you guys do any? No, we didn't know about this last year. All you had to do was ask. It's like Perion Winfrey. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't do their due diligence, but enough of those guys, okay? Andrew Berry, I think, is a good GM. Andrew Berry has done a nice job acquiring talent. But enough of this, Perion Winfrey, oh, man, he gets us. You see him, up and down the hall, he's foaming at the mouth, and he's saying, I was born to be a dog, and whatever, barking at the media. And then how many times did he get a did not play, did not dress, did not travel? And you heard about the attitudes. This Browns team, needs a huge, huge upgrade. Not just in talent or, rushing the passer or stopping the run, certainly, but they need an upgrade in attitude and in want to and in love of the game and in, putting your ego on the shelf and playing for one another. And I know it's, you roll your eyes, they're cliche, but the great organizations do that week after week, month after month, year after year, and that's why the same old organizations, for the most part, are at the top every single year. So if nothing else, okay, obviously you're in the third round, so a lot of the hyped guys and legitimate hype guys are going to be gone, but there's still plenty of talent out there. But not only do I hope that the Browns have vetted that talent, but they vetted the kid. They vetted the attitude. They talked to every assistant coach. And I know these guys have a lot of connections. So I know that they're going to do that, but maybe it wasn't as high a priority as it needs to be right now. And that's all I'll say. I mean, the Justin Gilbert thing is one of the most amazing stories I've ever. And Pettin's face, God bless him, he didn't change expression. Because I think Pettin probably liked Justin Gilbert a lot. Remember, that was the draft where they said, well, he didn't really want Johnny Manziel. Jimmy Haslam supposedly, whatever.
Homeless guy told him.
Homeless guy or whatever. I don't know. It's nauseating, but well, hey, Mike, if you want your defensive corner, you want your guy. So I don't have any doubt that he liked him as a player. I mean, when the pick was first made and announced, Cleveland Browns have moved up, and with the 8th pick, have selected Justin Gilbert, cornerback, Oklahoma State. I like the pick because, again, I'm just going on. Well, he's long, he's physical, he can return kicks, he's athletic. So great, grab him. It's not my job to uncover, and all you had to do was ask an assistant coach. The assistant coaches were like, we would have told people there. I mean, other teams did ask about him, and we told them the truth. That, like, I don't know how much he really loves football. He's good at it. He's great at it. But does he really love football? Sometimes it wanes. Okay, thank you. If he falls to the second round, let us know, or the third round. But I'm not taking him 8th overall. That's what they did.
It's textbook organizational incompetence, Chico.
Textbook, one more time, Boom. Textbook organizational incompetence.
Yes.
I like that. I'm going to ask, I know Shook will remember that story. We're going to have Nick Shook from NFL.com coming your way at 2 o'clock. Talk mainly about OBJ, but I can't wait to ask him because that is still, and there's so many stories from, years and years of just embarrassment, right, since the Browns came back in 99. But that one was easily one of my favorite / least favorite. And, of course, I didn't like Johnny Manziel coming in. I admit that. And I've been, like, Trent Richardson. I thought Trent Richardson was going to be a stud. Missed that. I mean, did have a good year. But my, oh, my. Like, it's time. And there's still, you have 8 picks. I don't know if they're going to end up with 8 picks come draft night, come the end of this month. But you have 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6, and a 7. All right, I'll tell you what. We'll take a quick break. You want to chime in, 216-626-7901, 216-626-7901. Cavaliers are all set for their matchup against the New York Knicks. Game 1 Saturday at 6 p.m. Who are they worried about? Who should they be concerned about? We'll talk about that when we come back and then shift back to the NFL coming up at 2 with Nick Shook. It's the Chico Bormann Show, and it's live right here on the Big Play Network. And welcome back. Chico Bormann Show live here on the Big Play Network. Also streaming on YouTube, streaming on Twitter. Find us at Chico Show CLE, YouTube, the Chico Bormann Show. Hit that little subscribe button. It is a gorgeous, and I mean gorgeous Monday. Looking out over here, studios at Burke Lakefront Airport. You can see the lake just shining. I mean, just in all our beauty. I mean, boom, we are lucky to be here.
Glistening.
Glistening. That's the one I was looking for. Yeah, you're right. It is glistening. Who has it better than we do? Nobody. All right. 216-626-7901. Nick Shook coming up top of the hour. You see this story out of Minnesota about Rudy Gobert? He's been suspended for the play-in tournament, the play-in game, which will be they play the Lakers tomorrow. They're already kind of facing an uphill climb, but Rudy Gobert threw a punch, but he threw a punch not at the Pelicans, but at his own teammate, Kyle Anderson. Now, Bohm, you and I, we've had a few heated discussions. Usually our heated discussions revolve around, like, if I say I don't think if I don't think like Jackson Smith and Jigba is the greatest wide receiver ever to walk planet Earth, you will get a little testy with me, or stuff like that. But I don't think we've ever come to blows, have we?
You insult JSN like that, I'll knock your ass out, Chico.
Well, Rudy Gobert, remember, we've got Donovan Mitchell here in Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert never got along, right? Like it wasn't even a secret. Like, it was well known in Utah. They hated each other. Rudy Gobert is now in Minnesota, and kind of the same stuff. And remember, this is the same Rudy Gobert. Certain things are stuck in your mind, right? Because when we found out, when COVID was just emerging, and, we're like, I mean, we didn't really know what was going on, but I remember, doing my night show, and I remember we were getting messages that, well, the MAC tournament was canceled, and I'm like, oh God, this stinks, right? And then the NBA was thinking about it, and then that was the same night that Rudy Gobert, remember when he walked in to address the media, and the media, they always put their microphones and their, little recorders, phones maybe, up at the front table, and then Rudy went in there and, like, grabbed a mic and started, like, wiping his, like, breathing on it and wiping his armpits with it, and
then he ended by touching them all.
Yeah, he touched them all, right. And, well, as it turns out, probably not the smartest move. But Rudy Gobert, like, I don't know him personally, but it sounds like Rudy Gobert sometimes can't get out of his own way. And it sounds like here, like, but now you hit your own teammate. You can't play. I mean, this is for all the marbles. Now, play-in games or whatever, but some people think LA might win the West. Chris Mannix has said he thinks the Lakers could win the West. I don't know about that. That's who Minnesota has. Maybe they don't have a chance. Maybe they didn't have a chance even with Rudy Gobert not suspended, but, well, he is. He punched Kyle Allen. Gobert got into a verbal altercation with teammate Kyle Anderson in a huddle during Sunday's game against New Orleans. The incident turned physical, with Gobert punching Anderson in the chest as the two exchanged words. Punched him in the chest. Is that a little less egregious than if you don't punch him in the face, but you just punch him in the chest? Can you get away with that?
I mean, it seems like less bad, but that's still pretty bad.
Yeah, he's your teammate. Now, again, there are not every. I mean, we've seen it, right? I mean, guys fight. It's now normally we're talking about that sort of thing in training camp, right? NFL training camp, and they're tired of beating up on each other. But even during a season or during a practice, even sometimes the teams that seem to have the best chemistry somebody says the right thing on the wrong day, and, somebody's having a bad day, and bam, there you have it. But with Gobert, this is like following him wherever he goes. I mean, do we think Gobert, like, I'm trying to figure it out. Is Gobert really that bad of a teammate? Or is it just, Donovan Mitchell seems to be a great teammate. Like, that's the thing. Like, when I first heard that Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert didn't get along, I remember thinking, well, Mitchell, I didn't know anything about Donovan Mitchell other than he was a great player. I'm like, well, maybe Mitchell's a bit of a horse's ass. Maybe, he thinks it's his team and Rudy, whatever. But now, like, you're getting a reputation, and he was sent home following the incident. Like, he didn't even make it to the end of the game. Like, just go home.
I don't know how you come back from that, Chico. Like, how, as a teammate, seeing that, I just don't know how I could not think any less, or like think less of the guy.
Well, I don't think it's so much that, but I think it is the incident itself. You're right. But what it also is the fact that, the playoffs are on the line. I mean, here's your chance to get into the postseason, and Rudy Gobert, your guy down low, I'm not saying he's the answer against Anthony Davis, but you're going to need somebody. He can block shots.
Multiple-time defensive MVP.
Yeah, he is
defensive player of the year.
Exactly. He is a guy that can swat shots away, and he's a guy that can, change directions in the paint, and now he's not there. So whatever chance you may have had, and I didn't think Minnesota was going to beat LA anyway, but whatever chance you may have had, well, you just completely screwed that up. Completely screwed that up. So I don't know. That was wild. But obviously good news here in Cleveland as we get ready for the New York Knicks coming to town Saturday. Now it's official. I wondered what time they would get. I kind of like the 6 p.m. start. And I'm with you, Bohm. You said you think it's important for them to get off to a good start. I do as well. Again, this is still, while they're a young team, but they're a young team that has a lot of games under the belt. They do. This is still a young team that I feel like if they get out and get off on the right foot, that's going to do them very, very well. So, we'll see. Obviously, come Saturday at 6. All I know is that place should be rocking because New York fans, I can't believe, and not just fans. Their talk show hosts, all of them, saying that Cleveland's going to be nothing more than a speed bump. You guys aren't that. I don't know if they think Patrick Ewing's on that team, John Starks. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. Your team's good. It's a good matchup. I think the Cavs are a slightly better team. The Cavs should be favored, and they are. But, like, Knicks fans saying that Cleveland's just, whatever. We're just kidding. We want Boston in the second round. Easy. This guy never looks ahead. He's always focused, 100% focused on the task at hand. And as we shift gears to the National Football League, he, of course, is our good buddy and a proud member of the Bald Brotherhood, Nick Shook, NFL.com, joining us here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Network. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic, Chico. Thanks for having me on.
The weather is splendid. Our beautiful lake is, in Bohm's words, glistening in the distance. It's hard not to be in a great mood out here. Glistening, it is. It's glistening. All right, before we get started, I got to ask you something. I was talking about drafts gone wrong, many of them in the past for the Browns, and I said the one that stands out the most to me was 2014 when they had. and it's not just Manziel, because I didn't really like or want Manziel to begin with, but okay, whatever. It was Gilbert, and it was Gilbert because, and again, not to say I didn't like that pick. I did. He was long. He returned kicks, Oklahoma State. But I will never forget, and I don't know if you were there. You may have been there covering it yourself. But I'll never forget the next year at the Combine, so 2015, Pettin is there in front of the media. And, they're asking him questions, and then the subject to Johnny Manziel, then the subject to Justin Gilbert. And he said something along the lines, Nick, of, yeah, well, Justin has some deep-seated demons that he's dealing with, and we're hoping that he's going to be able to. And it kind of caught everybody's ear, as it should. And we're like, Coach, did you say Justin has some deep-seated demons? Yeah, there's some things that we've uncovered that he's definitely gonna have to work through. And so then the obvious follow-up questions were, did you guys happen to know this before you drafted him? Did you? Oh, no, because Farmer, he wasn't going to the pro day. What are you gonna glean from the pro day, Nick? You might talk to a coach or something, but that to me is still one of the most amazing stories of many, many bad drafts for the Browns through the years. I'll never forget Patton answering those questions at the Combine about Justin Gilbert.
You would think that a staff would do its due diligence, but that was the state of the Browns at that time. I mean, they took the two biggest risks in the draft. One on a guy who had documented issues when it came to partying, in Johnny Manziel, and wasn't very serious about football, as we soon learned. And then Justin Gilbert, a guy that they didn't do their due diligence on and realized that he had some issues that were going to limit him from ever becoming a productive player at the professional level, where you have to be a dedicated professional, and he wasn't. And we saw how that manifested. You remember the whole road rage incident where he supposedly dumped his cup of tobacco spit on a car nearby.
I did. Yeah.
I
forgot about that, but yep.
Yeah. It was a dark time for the Browns, but I'll tell you what, it was a dark day for me because I was not covering it. It was my last month of college at Kent State, and it was my 22nd birthday, the first round of the draft. And the whole time through, I'm pounding the table, just don't draft Johnny Manziel. And then they drafted Johnny Manziel and ruined my 22nd birthday, and I'll never forget it. It was a terrible night where, it was a great night because it was my birthday, but they ruined it. They ruined my birthday with those picks. And it was in that moment where, as I graduated from college a few days later and moved on to my professional career, that I officially made the transition from being a Browns fan to being somebody who covers the NFL and has no bias or emotional attachment to that team.
Can you really do that? When reporters and writers say that, can they really, really just completely pull themselves away from that team?
Yeah, you can. I think for me, I worked for them for close to a year, and I think that just takes the romanticism out of it. I know I'm still pegged as a Browns fan. When we do the Around the NFL podcast, they always say, "Oh, you're Browns," and I just kind of go with it. And I live right by the stadium and everything else. I'm in Cleveland, but let me be completely frank with you. There is no excitement for me with the Browns, and there's no pulling for them to win. I get pegged as a Browns fan on Twitter when I say something about another team in the division. I speak glowingly about the Steelers, but the Bengals, I'm pounding the table for the Bengals to get all the way to the AFC Championship game. I'm saying you guys aren't paying attention to how good of a football team they are. But the first sign of trouble, and it's, this guy's a Browns fan. Just look at him. He's from Cleveland. Okay, first off, I'm from Akron. Secondly, not a Browns fan. Somebody who grew up a Browns fan, covers the league without bias, and has completely removed myself from that. So, it is possible. It's very possible when you get an up-close and personal look, especially in a season that becomes a disaster for the team.
Yeah. All right, we're talking to Nick Shook, NFL.com. The draft is approaching. The Browns, well, they're going to have a little bit of a wait, which means you fans are going to have a little bit of a wait. They have 2/3, 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6, and a 7. So it will be a little bit of a wait. But, Nick, one of the big reason I wanted to talk to you today, I've been asking you about this for the last couple of weeks, about OBJ. And my thought was initially, like, look, okay, OBJ, when he laughed off the report about he wants $20 million, I remember saying to myself, well, you better laugh it off because there is no way in hell any team is paying him $20 million a year. But honestly, I even thought $15 million guaranteed was way too much. And I thought, well, I remember Nick and I were talking about this, Nick Padone and I were talking about this in studio, and he said, what do you think is reasonable for him? I'm like, 8 to 10, maybe a little bit more guaranteed. I mean, he hasn't played in a while. I know he's OBJ. Sure enough, he gets $15 million guaranteed. It can escalate to $18 million, Nick Shook, and he doesn't even really know. I know we hear these things about, well, he has constant communication with Lamar Jackson, but he doesn't even know who's going to be throwing him passes, and this is in an offense that wasn't exactly – wide receiver friendly. What do you make of this deal with OBJ?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you have kind of two sides of breaking this down right away. And one is that, well, he must have an assurance that Lamar is going to be a Raven. And I do think that, despite what we've discussed in the past, it's going to be difficult to envision a scenario in which Lamar is not a Raven because of the franchise tag, because of the 2 first-round picks that it'll cost the team just to pull him from the Ravens, not to mention the massive amount of money that he's going to want with a new team. That's going to be difficult to make happen. So I think more likely than not, he will be with the Ravens. But the question is, when? And how, because that's where the gap that they have yet to bridge between the Ravens and Lamar to this point. So to think that Odell signs with the assurance that Lamar will be there, I think it's a fair play of the odds, but I don't think it's nearly as guaranteed as it appears on its surface from that group. And then the other group is, well, the Ravens are desperate and they're trying to make a big splash signing because they haven't had a great receiver in a long time, and they're trying to convince Lamar that they're in lock, stock, and barrel, and we're changing the offense. And look, we finally gave you a toy to play with in the receiving core. But Odell is far from a sure thing. Personally, I've always gotten along really well with the guy. He's treated me really well, but he's also had a lot of injury issues in the last few years. I mean, going back to when he joined the Browns, he had a core muscle injury. He had a knee injury. He goes on to the Ravens. He hurts his knee again. The history of it is there, and it makes me concerned as somebody who looks at it from a player personnel perspective, just for this exercise. That's far from guaranteed. I don't know if I'd give that type of money. And the crazy thing about all of this is this has been a weird free agency. This has been a weird offseason. The running back market has been a desert. The receiver market has not been far behind in terms of money handed out, especially when you compare it to last year when you saw the money that Christian Kirk got from the Jaguars. And then Tyreek Hill gets, 30 a year from the Dolphins after forcing his way out of Kansas City via trade. It hasn't been anywhere near that. Odell right now is the top dollar guy, and that's coming off of a year in which he did not play. So, I don't know why necessarily Baltimore gave him that much money unless they felt pressed like they needed to make a move at the position. And I think if you look at this draft coming up and the fact that they don't have a lot of picks, if they were going to make an addition to convince Lamar or try to sell him on it or improve their offense overall, no matter who the quarterback is, this was your best option. And maybe what really required was bringing more money to the table to keep him from visiting the Jets, keep him from considering other options. But let's face it, this was not an overnight process. He spent months doing this, dating back to last season. He's going to go visit with the Cowboys. He's going to consider the Rams. He's going to consider the Jets. All these teams that were mentioned as being in the running, none of them end up being the team. And I think a lot of that has to do with the cash. I mean, $15 million guaranteed, up to $18 million for a guy who hasn't played in a year, who is 30 years old. I can tell you, at 30 years old, no matter how well you take care of your body, it doesn't respond quite as well as it used to. I think it's it is a little bit desperate. I would agree with that group to a degree. It is a little bit desperate. I also don't think it's indicative of something coming right around the corner for Lamar. I think we continue to wait and see on that. But for Odell, he got his money. So, good for him. Now, hopefully he can make it through the whole season healthy.
I'm just going to assume you hit on it. You hit the nail on the head. Like, we kept hearing about all these other teams. And of course, then there was the talk about the Jets. And I remember thinking, I think everybody does, like, oh, well, if you have an opportunity to catch passes from Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not knocking Lamar Jackson, but I mean, in terms of going downfield, you don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. Like, that just, if you're on a 1-year prove-it deal, I'd want to be banking on that situation more so than Baltimore. So it leads me to believe, Nick, that he couldn't get to that contract fast enough and grab that pen fast enough because – okay, yeah, it's not the most ideal situation for me. I mean, I love Lamar, but quite frankly, don't know if he's going to be there. But the bottom line is, I get the sense nobody was even close to giving him $15 million guaranteed with, possibly escalators to $18 million.
Yeah, and I think that, the Jets situation is somewhat similar to the Ravens in that they also don't have a firm answer of who their quarterback's going to be, but it's pretty close. I mean, they know it's going to be Rodgers. It's just a matter of time whether that deal gets done. Lamar is not quite as certain as that. So yeah, I think if, logic tells me that it comes down to money. And after waiting a whole year to not, latch on with a team when maybe he didn't quite feel ready physically after tearing his ACL in the Super Bowl, which is not a quick turnaround of a recovery anyway, it became time for Odell to cash in. And at 30 years old, maybe he turns this into a 1,000-yard season and we're all wrong and he looks great and everything else. And he cashes in again and it's a bet on himself. But if not, this might be his last chance to really ride whatever's left of his hype and his attractiveness as a receiver and cash in. And I think that he did that with this deal.
Doesn't this feel like This whole offseason basically started with and is still surrounding, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers. But for a while, there was a lot of buzz coming from Green Bay, coming from New York, coming from, Baltimore. It feels like it's just completely slow to a crawl to the point where I feel like this can only mean that we're going to get Shefty bomb after Shefty bomb on draft night. Like, it just feel like it's so it's gotten too quiet, I guess is the best way I can say it.
I can tell you, as somebody who sits and waits for news to happen, it causes me so much anxiety every day. Like,
and shook
right
bombs
before this,
too. Shook bombs.
I'm sitting here going, all right, I'm hearing nothing. When's it coming? Where's it coming from? And who is it about? Because it's just too quiet. Now, luckily, I got other stuff to work on. We got plenty of ways to pass the time productively, but I'm just on edge, man. It's like you're standing guard for a long time. You don't hear any sounds from the enemy out in the distance, but it's dark and the visibility's low, and you have no idea where they might be able to attack you from. That's what it feels like in the NFL right now as we approach the draft. Maybe it is quiet all the way up to the draft. I don't think so. I think that we've been waiting for a while for Lamar. We've been waiting for a while for Aaron Rodgers. Nothing's happened. Nothing substantial right now. We're recycling through just hearsay at this point. Yep. Smokescreen season has even slowed down. It's a very strange offseason. Not as busy, I think, or as exciting as we anticipated. Even with the quarterbacks and everybody that was changing hands, it just kind of happened and came and went. And now it's like, all right, when's the activity going to pick back up? This is not normal for this league. Not now.
Nobody enjoyed or had a greater smokescreen season than the Cleveland Browns over the years. Like, as someone on the air, like you were constantly hearing those rumors. And maybe this is, now it's a good problem to have. You mentioned the Packers and the Jets, and we talk about Rodgers. I want to go back there one more time, only because, like, I mentioned the idea that, something will drop on draft day. If you're Green Bay, wouldn't you want to have, wouldn't you want to know beforehand what picks you have going into the draft? Because I heard a couple people, I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday morning, they all run together, who said, this is going to be like a draft day deal. But if I'm Green Bay, I want to know what picks I'm getting, and maybe I want to package something and move up to get somebody. I would think they'd want to do it before the draft.
Yeah, but the beauty of the downtime right now and no action happening is that you have the time to prepare for all possible scenarios, which means, say you could have scenario A through Z prepared and ready to act in each situation. You have the time to work through that, because if you do your due diligence and properly finish your scouting process, which, as we talked about earlier, Ray Farmer did not do, and he paid the price for it, then you already know this class. You have your board, and it's just a matter of when are we picking. That's why the whole Lamar thing, I kept thinking, like, well, what happens? Like, what's the disaster scenario or the nuclear scenario in which they trade Lamar? Well, all of a sudden they're going to get a ton of picks back, and they only have 5 picks in this draft. So I'm like, maybe they get a couple first. They're going to get a couple first-round picks as required, but maybe they get the ammunition to move up. Maybe they move up and take a quarterback. Maybe they stun everyone. They're prepared for those situations, even if it's not all that realistic. Because if you're not doing your job well. So I think the Packers have to be in the same boat where they're like, all right, and they got to have a decent idea of where they're going to land based on discussions. I can't imagine it's been radio silent for weeks. Not after Rodgers goes out and publicly states, I'm going to the Jets. It's just a matter of them getting the deal done. I think it's just a matter of time, and they can use that time to prepare. And so, yeah, you would like to know what you have. You would like to know where you're picking and be able to plan accordingly. But I assure you, me, everybody, that they're preparing for every possible scenario. Because if they weren't, they don't deserve their jobs.
Any more rumblings that you're hearing? And I know it's all way too quiet on the front, but anything else you're hearing out of Carolina? Like, is it Stroud? Is it Bryce Young? Now, of course, because I think this is inevitable. Once you start hearing that it's C.J. Stroud, well, then the next week it's going to be, well, look out. Here comes Bryce Young. Is there a guy that you feel confident is going to be their pick? If for no other reason, it's just your gut feel.
My gut feel says CJ Stroud. And the reason is, I think if you're looking for a plug and play starter who, if you put him in the right situation, the right supporting cast, can win you games quickly. The best guy in this draft to do that is Stroud. He's built for it. He's got the accuracy that you need at the next level. He's got the decision making that you need at the next level. None of that is a concern. The only concern is that he doesn't use his athleticism enough, at least in my opinion, to extend plays, which he might be able to do over time, or maybe he'll never have to do because he's that talented. And I think if Carolina believes that they're in a situation in which all we need is the young quarterback that we need to put in there and we've got talent to surround him with, then they go with Stroud. I know that it's funny, though, that if you examine these different mock drafts, it's split. There is no consensus. Some people like Bryce Young more. Some people like CJ Stroud more. You could say I have like an Ohio bias with Stroud, but what I see between the two guys is one guy who is incredibly accurate. I mean, almost not historically so, it's, speaking statistically, but just with the eye test and seeing him, how he worked out in the pre-draft process, fantastic stuff to where you're like, he threw him open there. He threw him open there. Even if there's no defender there, that's going to play at the next level. And because the Panthers did such a good job of giving no hints of where they were leaning, going to all the pro days and everything else, that's all we can really lean on. But if it's down to me and it's my decision between those two guys, I'm going Stroud because I have to feel confident enough that I've given him enough talent around him to go help you win football games. And he's going to be the guy to do it because that's where Carolina is right now. They've swung and missed on quarterbacks. They tried Sam Darnold. They tried Baker Mayfield. I don't think David Tepper really wants to do that again and wait. I think that, he realized from his mistakes with taking the big swing on Matt Rule and getting an inexperienced guy, he paid the price for that. He went and got a veteran coach in Frank Reich. He opened the checkbook and said, build your staff with the best coaches necessary. I'll pay for it. We'll make sure we're really ready to go here. And if you're that ready to go, you get the best young guy in the draft that you think can play pretty quickly and win you some football games. And that's CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I'm never one, and I know certainly guys like yourself who cover it, you're not going to hear a team say, well, you know what, we watched this one game and that, that sold us. It's usually a progression and a bunch of different games and a bunch of different things go into it. But I can't help but just go back to that Georgia game, Nick. And he, not only is that a top flight defense, and it wasn't like he was in the pocket and he had all day to throw. I mean, he was moving around the pocket. He had his eyes downfield. All those things that like the quarterback gurus talk about, like keeping your eyes downfield and still able to throw an accurate. It's like he checked every single one of those boxes. Now, as an Ohio State fan, I wish they would have won that game. But if I'm an agent for CJ Stroud, I'm going, I think my guy may have, if he doesn't have that game, maybe we are talking about Bryce Young more. But I've got to believe that Georgia game, considering on what stage that was played and how great Georgia's defense is, I would think that game carries a lot of weight for some people. Maybe not.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I think prior to that game, his resume was essentially he put up a ton of points against Utah in a Rose Bowl in which nobody played defense. And he lost to Michigan twice. And the big knock on him is he can't win the big game, right? Because he can't beat Michigan in two tough situations against two solid Michigan teams, very good Michigan teams, as much as it might pain somebody like myself to say that. But then he goes and does it against Georgia, an NFL-level defense, a team that produced a ton of high picks in the previous draft and are going to produce more in this draft and more in the next draft, stocked, too deep across the board with studs. And he goes out there and stuns everyone. And a lot of people didn't give Ohio State a chance there. Oh, they backed their way into the playoff. We'll see what happens. They're still missing Jackson Smith and Jigba. And they had a very good shot to win that game. In fact, they probably should have won that game if they would have held on and played that last possession a little bit more aggressively. And none of that was the fault of CJ Stroud, who just played a fantastic game. So that's the proof. You're like, well, if we need a litmus test here of what he's going to face the next level, Georgia is a hell of a litmus test. And he passed with flying colors, in my opinion, even though they didn't win. And I think that's what really vaulted him. And if anything, it called into question everyone's previous opinion of CJ Stroud, which was that, he couldn't win against Michigan, that he could only go do it in a Rose Bowl against Utah. That suddenly they're like, well, we got to think about this again. And then it's caused you to go back and re-examine everything. And then you go watch his workouts and he, shows off at the combine. He has a great pro day. Everything sounds right. Like this guy is top pick material. That's kind of what sold me. That's kind of where I was. I was like, he's got the talent, but he hasn't, the mental toughness, I think, was lacking. He proved me wrong against Georgia in that Peach Bowl. And I think that a lot of people are probably on the same page.
He's a running back, so people will get a little, nervous and, well, you can't draft this guy. But there's a lot of folks that say, or a few folks anyway, that I've heard say that Bijan Robinson out of Texas is the best football player available in this year's draft. How high do you think he could go?
I think he's a first rounder. I don't know, because running back has been so devalued.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the only running back in this class that goes in the first round. He's head and shoulders above everybody else. Last year, it was like Brees Hall was probably the best back, but you weren't really feeling like he was, a top 20 pick or something like that. Bijan could easily go in the top 20. He could, I don't know, top 10's a little high just because of the devaluation of the position, but I think he's a surefire first round pick, and whoever gets him is going to have great expectations for him, and rightfully so. I mean, he was significantly better than every other running back at the combine. When I watched them work out, it was just different. He's built different. He moves differently. You can just tell that kid's going to be a stud at the next level, provided he stays healthy. And I think a team's going to be willing to take a swing on a guy like that. It just depends on who. He's been paired with Baltimore in the past. He's like a better J.K. Dobbins who could do more, and they like to run the football, but they're supposed to be changing their offense with Todd Monken. So I don't know necessarily where he lands, but I think he's a surefire first-round pick, and whoever takes him is probably going to be really happy with it.
All right, last thing for you, and I appreciate your time as always. I want to circle back to what we started with, with Lamar Jackson. Earlier last week, Drew Rosenhaus, who's never shy with words, said, if I was his agent, I think I could get something done because there's a sweet spot to be had. And, I mean, as well as I know, like the language that teams speak about contract and then the language that agents speak, that it's their language. And as a player or fan, even someone yourself who covers it, it can be a lot. It can be very heavy. Do you think that if Lamar Jackson had an agent that this deal would be done? Or is it really that much of an impact? I mean, I know there's a lot of money between, but like Rosenhaus was quoted as saying, yeah, there's a lot of money, but there's a lot of different ways that you can make that work. And that immediately said to me, well, man, if he had Rosenhaus or somebody else, would this be a done deal?
I compare this process for Lamar as confusing a process as being a first-time home buyer, and you're going through all these different documents and you got to figure out, a down payment, and you got to do an inspection and all this other stuff and figure out how to close, right? It's the same thing. Lamar's never done this before. He didn't come out of college with an education in this type of field that needs to be done. This is why you hire an agent. And it's a lot of money, which means the stakes are so much higher and there's so much more to consider and process. It's not just the numbers that we see tweeted or reported. There's so much more to it. But I totally agree with what he's saying, because there are so many ways to do this. You go back to the Odell thing because you think, well, he could get up to $18 million. Well, that's $18 less million that's available to pay Lamar Jackson right now. But if you sign him to a long-term deal and you backload the contract, then suddenly you got the room to pay him a certain amount now, and you guarantee a certain amount of money up front so that he's happy. Agents are the ones who are dealing with this and negotiating this and making sure that all the specifics in these contracts all work out to where they ensure that there isn't a clause in the contract that after year two that the team could get out of it with some weird thing that they wrote in there and all this stuff, all this fine print that most people don't even take the time to read the service agreements on their phones when they sign up. Okay. What are they going to do when it comes to a contract like this if they don't have an agent to walk them through it? It's serious stuff. And I totally think that it would be done by now, because that's a huge middleman, a huge helper to get that type of thing done. It could be why it's taking so long, not to mention the fact that it's a massive amount of money we're talking about.
If you need me to help you read your first-time homebuyer contract, I'm available. I mean, I don't really know anything about it, but I try to help you out.
Yeah, it's not a fun process, my friend.
I bet. It's very confusing, which is why I decided to just stay away from it altogether. That and the fact that I really don't have the money. So Nick Shook, NFL.com. He's one of the best in the business. Follow him on Twitter. And, of course, we're going to be talking to him again very soon as the draft approaches. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time.
Always, Chico. Thanks for having me on.
All right. That is, again, Nick Shook. Interesting stuff on OBJ. Yeah, I think I've come to the conclusion now, and I felt this way before talking to Nick, and I think he pretty much – I think it's case closed. I don't think OBJ had anywhere near the interest that he wanted everybody. And that's fine. That's kind of your job. Well, his job, his agent's job is to make it seem, like, well, hey, this team's after me. This team's after me. Teams may have been interested in him, but there is no way on God's green earth that teams were lining up to pay him $15 million guaranteed with escalators taking it maybe to 18. No way. He's just, and regardless of his name, regardless of what he's accomplished, like, he still hasn't played in a while. You don't know. You don't know what that knee's all about. And I mean, he's missed a lot of time. He's still an exciting wide receiver. And yeah, you do still have to take into account, and this isn't to go back to the Cleveland days and say it was all his fault. It was his fault. It was Baker's fault. It was everybody's fault. But if you're telling me he ends up in Baltimore, and he is headed there, and Lamar Jackson's the quarterback, or God forbid Tyler Huntley, if they can't get a deal done, again, I know you're bringing in Todd Monken. I know you're changing the offense, but I just don't see OBJ as like transforming that team. They've had so many wide receivers. Like we keep talking about, they never have any wide receivers. I mean, I thought Marquise Brown was isn't he a pretty good wide receiver? He was damn good at Oklahoma. Now, I mean, he had a decent year with Arizona.
Yeah, do you remember when Eric DaCosta took a shot, like a slight at his own receivers, when he made a comment about how he felt like they weren't good enough and they could use more talent? And then some of his players took offense to that, like Rashad Bateman.
Rashad Bateman's a good wide receiver, kid out of Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there as well. I don't think you're bringing in OBJ with the intention of him being your wide receiver one.
Yeah, if they are now, they're paying him like a wide receiver one. That's what's interesting.
Yeah,
you're paying him. To me, you talk about paying for the name and paying for what a guy's done and what his resume. That's OBJ. Again, he can help you. Like, did he help the Rams? Yes, before he got injured and whatever. He was a nice role player, but it wasn't like there was any there wasn't any question who the number one wide receiver was in LA for the Rams. It was Cooper Kupp. And I think he was even in the mix, OBJ was, with other guys for number 2 or number 3, depending on, what offense they were in and what they were running. I just, that stuns me. I mean, that stuns me. And it can go one of two ways. And this is why it's so fascinating for me with the Ravens. Are they doing it because they do want to send a message to Lamar Jackson that, hey, we mean business, and look, we're going to bring in Odell Beckham Jr. At the same time, can that have the reverse effect? Wait a minute. I've been here since day one. I've done everything you guys have wanted me to do. I'm an MVP. I'm the face of your franchise. You're willing to pay this guy who hasn't played many games. And by the way, Lamar's missed, 10 of the last 22, or hasn't started 10 of the last 22. But you're going to pay this guy that much money, and yet you won't even consider. Now, I know it's apples and oranges as far as the total dollar amount, but it's kind of the principle of thing. In the words of Big Perm, there's principalities involved. Boom. It's the principle. There's principalities involved. Very, very fascinating. And I'll be curious to see what happens right up until draft day. A lot of people tell me, Lamar's going to play. Lamar's going to play. I mean, I would think he's going to play and think he's going to play for Baltimore, but I don't know how anyone can be confident in that right now when the two sides are. I mean, there's been a lot of haymakers thrown lately. Basically, when the owners' meeting started, and I don't know if Lamar did it on his own. I don't know if Lamar had somebody in his ear. I don't know if it was Lamar's mom. But, boy, that Twitter surely seemed to be really well in tune with when to fire off tweets that would really get John Harbaugh rattled. Like, oh, hey, coach is speaking. The media is all there. How about we fire this one off right now? It's really, really odd to see, and I think even it's going to be more fascinating just to see how this whole thing plays out as we lead up to draft day. All right, we'll step aside. We come back. Yankees are in town to take on your Cleveland Guardians. Guardians able to salvage the finale yesterday. They needed extra frames. Still good news. They're 6-4. They're behind the Twins in the American League Central. Yankees coming to town, though, and two guys for the Guardians that I feel need to get going, and one guy might be riding the pine here to begin this series and maybe for the entire series against the Yankees. We'll talk about that, and we'll take your calls, 216-626-7901. This is the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Network. Welcome back. Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous Monday afternoon, and it's going to turn that way into evening. And, well, that's going to be just grand for all of you that are heading out to Progressive Field tonight because the Guardians are welcoming in the New York Yankees. Garrick, Ruth, DiMaggio, Mantle, Costanza. Yes, those New York Yankees. Our good buddy Brett Boone, his brother Aaron, who we affectionately like to call Uncle Arnie. The only reason I know that is Brett put out a book years and years ago. He barely remembers doing it. And I was reading it, and I happened to come across the Uncle Arnie part, and I just dropped it in an interview like last year, the year before, and he's like, "Where the hell did you hear about Uncle Arnie?" And I said, "It's in your book." He goes, "It is?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I like referring to him as Uncle Arnie. But Yanks are in town. Guardians 6-4. Not a great weekend, and kind of, they were able to salvage the finale yesterday. I would say the one thing that was different, put it this way, I think it was Saturday's game. Almost positive it was Saturday's game, maybe Friday's game, where they struck out 13 times. I mean, even Quan had some strikeouts, and he never strikes out. But they had a lot of strikeouts. That's, not something you'll see often from them, hopefully. They dropped 2 out of 3. But again, keep in mind, Seattle is a very good team, and the Guardians took 3 out of 4 from the Mariners in Seattle to open up the season. So the good news is, I mean, you don't even think about this. The season series, now with the balanced schedule, the season series is done not already. First few weeks of baseball is done between the Guardians and the Mariners, and the Guardians did win the season series. So you say, well, okay, it's April 10th, whatever. If it comes right down to it, there's a tiebreaker, and the Mariners could very well be in the postseason, and the Guardians be in the postseason. We're talking about home field. Could play a role. So yesterday was actually big in more ways than one. But now they get ready for the Bronx Bombers, and they get ready for some guy named Aaron Judge, who just hits mammoth home runs and lots of them. It's hard to root against Aaron Judge. Like, he's one of those guys, like, I never even really rooted against, per se, Derek Jeter. I mean, he kind of got tired of him, but I respected his game, and I feel the same way about Aaron Judge. That said, I think this is albeit early, this is a big series. You got Bieber going tonight against Domingo Germán, and Germán hasn't been. They've been this rotation for the Yankees has really, really been snake bitten. Injuries. I mean, Severino and Germán at times, and Cortez. They signed Carlos Rodon, and he went out. So I mean, it's, they've really been snake bitten. But like tonight, you really want to jump on that, especially with your stud on the mound. You want to jump on them early, get game one, and I'll be curious. Let me see. I'm going to look for the lineups right now and just see if the lineups are out. I'm going to predict that Will Brennan is going to start. It is already out. Okay, so here we go. And he is. Yes, he is. So the Guardians lineup is out. Juan Rosario Ramirez, 1, 2, 3. Josh Naylor playing first, batting cleanup. Andres Jimenez, so he's moving up in the lineup, which is good. Batting .350. He's batting in the 5-hole, playing second base. Josh Bell is going to DH. He's got to get going, batting .086. But then behind Josh Bell, Will Brennan. Keep in mind, you're going to see all right-handed pitchers. You're going to see Garrett Cole tomorrow, Germán I mentioned tonight, and then the third day is going to be Clark Schmidt, I believe. So Will Brennan might very well get the start in each of these games. Batting 7th tonight, Mike Zunino, 8th, and Miles Straw, who's been outstanding, by the way, coming out of that 9-hole for the Guardians. So two guys that I was going to say need to get going. One is Josh Bell. The other is Oscar Gonzalez. Gonzalez might have some. I mean, he could be lifted for a pinch hitter or whatever late in the game. This might be a good time for him to just kind of get away, kind of rest his mind a little bit. He's trying to do too much, just like Josh Bell's trying to do too much. You want to impress your new teammates. You want to impress the fans, all of that stuff. Oscar, I'm a little bit more concerned about. And I think in Oscar's case, you always want to say, well, okay, don't worry about the pressure. You can't do anything about that. But the reality of the situation is Will Brennan is off to a good start. They've liked Will Brennan for a while. Not that they don't like Oscar. But Will Brennan, he just continues to put together good at bat after good at bat after good at bat. And that's the reason he made the opening day roster. He's done nothing to, dispel that as far as the start of this season. Every time he's had an opportunity, including in the clutch, he's been able to step up and do that. So this could be a situation with 3 right-handers on tap for New York where Will Brennan is going to be your everyday starter, at least for these 3 days against the Yanks.
And there's certainly been there is a fair share of concerns surrounding this team, right? Early 10 games in, it feels like Zuniga, his bat started to come down to earth a little bit.
Zunino.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
That makes up names. Yeah. Zunino. Okay.
You got it.
Okay, yeah, there we go. It feels like his bat's starting to come back down to earth a little bit, but And then obviously questions with the rotation. Savali's second start was a little more shaky. Not terrible, only 3 runs, but a little more down to earth as well. And at the same time, there have been quite a few pleasant surprises, like your boy Will Brennan. I'm astonished to see a 344 average right next to Miles Straw's name. And so there are a lot of things that I didn't see coming that I think I'm excited to see how they hopefully flourish over the course of the season. And the Yankees are a great place to make that first statement. Obviously, Seattle Mariners, a very good ball club in the AL this season, but the Yankees are the big dogs. These are the big bullies of the AL.
Yeah, and I think, again, you have an opportunity. What I want to see more than anything else, Shane Bieber hopefully is going to keep these guys at bay tonight. It might not be very easy, and again, who knows? Aaron Judge might very well go deep on you. Not even once, but twice, multiple times in this series. That's what he does. But I think the opportunity is there for the Guardians offensively to get back on track, at least tonight against Herman. Like, I want to see, Josh Bell start driving the ball. Too many ground balls. I want to see him, feel comfortable at the plate. Jimenez has been great. He's going to move up to that 5 spot. I like that. And like I said, Will Brennan is just continuing to put together good at bat after good at bat after good at bat. Do you have some questions about the bullpen a little bit? Not really. I mean, again, it's very early in the season. Like I heard some people say, well, Clase's velocity is not. It's April. I mean, he'll be okay. He'll be all right.
Not even concerned about Karinchak?
Well, Karinchak, I've already said as much, but I mean, I don't think we don't expect as much out of Karinchak as we do Emmanuel Clase. Stefan. I think the bullpen's going to be fine. The rotation, the good news is we do hear that Tristan McKenzie is feeling very, very good. He's still very early in that process. When they said 8 weeks, it might very well be every bit of 8 weeks. So yeah, it's going to be imperative. Cal Quantrill, you just love. Cal Quantrill had another outing. He is becoming, I'm trying to think of the comparison for him, but Cal Quantrill is becoming that guy who a lot of pitchers in the Indians organization, because they do seek these types of guys out that just don't get rattled. But Cal Quantrill, that game yesterday could have gotten away from him. That could have very easily they're early on, they're threatening, but Cal Quantrill always finds a way to get out of trouble and always finds a way to settle down and always finds a way to seemingly give you, 5, sometimes 6 innings and just be that starter who's going to get you late into a game or late enough into a game.
Chico, do you think of all the guys in this rotation, is Cal Quantrill the Fausto Carmona to Shane Bieber's CC?
Wow. In terms of, I need you to explain that.
There was a point when they were playing together when they were arguably both Cy Young contenders. They were arguably both 2 of the most dominant pitchers in baseball.
Oh, Cal Quantrill's not there.
Well, no, he's not there yet, but can he be?
No, because, and this is what I'm okay with. Cal Quantrill's not necessarily, he's not going to wow you with numbers. He's not going to strike out a ton of batters. Fausto or Roberto Hernandez or whatever the hell his name is.
I was trying to remember what it was.
Yeah, Roberto Hernandez. He had that, first of all, that sinker that I think it was Torrey Hunter when he was playing with the Twins said, man, if you face him in a day game after a night game and you're the least bit hungover, it feels like you're trying to hit a bowling ball. And a very weighty bowling ball at that. Like Fausto, he had some sick stuff, and then, everything unraveled. But no, Cal
turned out to be a sick guy. Just kidding.
Cal Quantrill, nice joke, Bo. Cal Quantrill is a guy that he's not going to mow people down. He's going to get guys out. And like I said, there's something to be said for the guy that is facing, threats every inning, and wow, guys are on base, but somehow just kind of takes a deep breath and finds a way to get out of it and finds a way to navigate to the, fifth, sixth inning, maybe even beyond. And I thought he did it again yesterday. So he's never going to be like a dominant pitcher, I don't think, and proves me wrong. Great. But he's going to be like, he's one of those guys you could probably pencil in for a long, long time, and he's going to be a solid 3 or 4 in your rotation. You're still trying to figure out about Savali. You're still trying to figure out about, Zach Plesac. Plesac looked better in his outing, but I just think that, it's one of those things where for the Guardians, you have guys in the pipeline. Like you have young guys that are able to, or hopefully able to. I'm sorry, it was Plesac yesterday, Quantrill on Saturday. My bad. But you have young guys in the organization that are soon going to be making that jump. So you feel good about that, but you don't want it to come because, well, Aaron Savali couldn't get it figured out, or Zach Plesac couldn't get it figured out. You don't have those concerns with Cal Quantrill. McKenzie, that's big because now you're talking about no one's Shane Bieber. You're talking about a nice 1-2 punch. That was the Guardians last year when McKenzie found it in the second half. And now he's going to be missing a lot of time to the point, now everything's going well so far, but you want to not only get him back soon, you want to get him back the way he was and who he was when he dominated in the second half of the season. Because he was, in my mind, Tristan McKenzie at that point in the second half of the year was absolutely outstanding. And that was a huge loss to start the year. Huge loss.
And I think you just have to have some degree of wonder or concern about how effective Tristan can be immediately after his return. Like, I don't know. It's hard to imagine that you're going to get that same level of production in his first start to the season.
Yeah. Well, and they'll be very careful. I mean, obviously, they're going to be very careful with him. I mean, even still, I think heading into the season, they were going to be very careful with him. But, yeah, off 8 weeks, sure. What are you laughing at, Boom? What do you got there?
Just looking at one of the YouTube comments we got, and you can chime in, and we'll try to react to your comments on the show. But D. Solsky shouts you out, Chico. He says, "What's up, Big Perm?"
Big Perm, Big Worm. There's principalities involved. All right, there's principalities involved. So anyway, we'll see. Yankees in town for 3. Then I think they've got the Tigers and the Nationals, if I'm not mistaken. So it gets a little bit easier, but I think this is a series. Yes, it's early, but it's still, pretty big. Just like that game yesterday. I mentioned it. The season series between Seattle and Cleveland, already it's, April 10th. It's already done. It's already over with. So because the Guardians won that season series, could that pay dividends later on in the year when we're, hunting down a playoff spot or you're hunting down home field advantage, things of that nature? Oh, yeah. And the same here. But I'm very curious to see Will Brennan. I think, barring something unforeseen, I think is going to get the start each and every night. You got 3 right-handers, and I think this is a good time to let Oscar Gonzalez just hopefully try to figure some things out. But Will Brennan right now, he's doing everything they want him to do, and hopefully that continues. Regular playing time. He's going to face a good one tomorrow night in Garrett Cole, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, 216-626-7901. Again, 216-626-7901. We mentioned about the Masters. By the way, like Rory McIlroy, he didn't even make the cut. Like all that, you got to at least make the cut if you're Rory McIlroy. You talk all that, I don't say garbage. I like Rory, but I think sometimes Rory sometimes thinks he's Tiger. And, you don't have that resume. But, you've had all this time to get ready for the Masters, complete the Grand Slam, and blast the live guys, which, he's not the only one to do that. But then he doesn't even show up. And by the way, Tiger, that was tough to see. I mean, it felt like, it really did feel like you're going to see him at Augusta. But the days of seeing Tiger Woods competitive at Augusta National, competitive period, really. I mean, we forget, and I know we look at guys like Tiger and other guys of that ilk and think like they're Superman, they're robots, right? Tiger's he's got metal up and down that leg everywhere. This guy has had 4 or 5 back surgeries alone. Now you throw in the leg in there. I mean, you could just see it, and it was kind of tough to watch. It happens. I mean, Father Time is undefeated. As great as Tiger Woods is, you knew that it could go that way, especially with the elements and the weather. I mean, you had some mornings there in Augusta where it was like 45 and light rain. That's not going to be good for a guy that's had that many surgeries and has that much metal in his body. But all in all, I wish it was more entertaining. I wish the Masters for me had more of a true rival feel, like true golfer rival feel, as opposed to the LIV versus the PGA Tour. And like, I know some people say, well, that's good. Hey, you've got some guys that don't like each other, and that's good. You need villains, but you want villains on the golf course playing the same tournaments. These guys from the LIV Tour are going to go back and play their 54-hole tournaments. And like Phil Mickelson, look, I know he's my favorite, but even I've kind of soured a little bit. But, I mean, honestly, if you're Phil Mickelson, they didn't like the grind. Like a lot of them said it was too much of a grind, which I know people will laugh at. Yeah, that professional golfer lifestyle. But when you're traveling and all of that stuff, and I think basically what Phil was getting at is we deserve a larger piece of the pie, which ironically, or not so much, that happened right after they left. Jay Monahan knew that was coming. Jay Monahan knew that was on the way, and it was on the way. Yesterday's purse for the Masters was a total of $18 million. John Rahm's paycheck was $650,000 more than last year's winner, Scottie Scheffler. And that's going to continue. And those guys on the PGA Tour really do have the guys on the LIV Tour to thank. They won't thank them. And I'm not saying the LIV Tour isn't, it is kind of, the whole thing's messy. And is it kind of dirty and shady in spots? Yeah. But they play 54 holes. So now, a guy like Phil Mickelson looked great. I mean, now, I don't know if he's on some sort of, but you're playing 54 holes as opposed to 72 holes. It's just, but it really didn't hold my interest like I thought it would. And I hope that this isn't the case moving forward for every major, because I used to live for the majors. I loved watching the majors, like morning to night, or, the British Open, getting up bright and early and watching it at like 4 or 5 in the morning, them tee off over the pond. I don't know if there's enough to keep me interested other than just, oh, yeah, I like the game of golf. And I do. But from a player standpoint, it doesn't seem to be there right now. So I don't know, Boom. I don't know. I'm going to need some kind of villain. I'm going to need some kind. I need a new guy is what I need. A new guy to cheer for. I need a new guy to latch onto. I don't know who that's going to be.
Could you ever foresee someone jumping ship from the LIV back to the PGA Tour, or is that just like an impossible scenario?
I don't think the PGA. I think if they wanted to, the PGA wouldn't allow them. I mean, and that's PGA plays that. We're high and mighty, and we're. I don't think it's a matter of. First of all, I don't think they'd want to because the money is just too great. But let's say they did, I don't think the PGA would allow it, and the guys they'd have to vote. I would guess that's got to be to a vote, and no way it would fly.
I know that everyone was talking about watching for how contentious it might be between the LIV and the PGA guys. Do you think there's any possibility that there was some recruiting going on from the LIV guys to some of their PGA counterparts?
I mean, not like, I wouldn't say like active recruiting, but they've had, put it this way, they've been having these conversations for years now, a couple of years now. So, was there more of it? Maybe. I don't think as much, though. I think just out of respect for, and the other thing was too, keep in mind, this was the Masters. So they were going to, you could see it during the telecast and hear it during the telecast. The Masters was not going to allow the Live Tour to become any kind of a talking point. It basically was, it's not an issue. And, if it happens that one of them and a few of them were in contention, then, okay, we'll talk about it from a golf standpoint, but that's it. That can be imposed, and it was by Hootie and the guys in Augusta. I don't know if they'll be able to do that, at the other tournaments or the other majors, but, time will tell. We shall see. All right, we're out of time. Folks, do not forget later on tonight, the Reflog show. I'm sure they're going to have some thoughts on the Masters as well as the Cavs and the Knicks getting ready for the postseason. The Guardians in action taking on the Yankees, beginning a 3-game series tonight. Shane Bieber against Domingo Herman. And, again, Will Brennan getting the start. Wouldn't be shocked to see him get the start tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday, but we shall see. For tomorrow's show, we are chasing Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com. As we said, Cavaliers getting ready for Game 1 Saturday night against the New York Knicks. I'm Mike Chico Bormann. Thank you to Michael Bohm. Also, Nick Shook joined us from NFL.com. Reflog coming your way later on this evening. Go Guardians, go Cavs. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.